Let's speak to Maya Ameratunga. She's the UNHCR's representative in Afghanistan. That's where she's speaking to us from. She's joining us from Kabul. Nice to have you with us on the news grid. What's your biggest concern for those people? If we look at the story of the Pakistanis who are now leaving Afghanistan, going back to effectively considered their home in Pakistan, what's your biggest concern for them?
Well, Afghanistan, despite its own problems, has been very generously accommodating Pakistani refugees, about 125,000 of them, mainly women and children, since 2014. And now the Pakistani authorities have been discussing with the refugee elders about the prospect of their return. So this is a return operation which actually UNHCR is not involved in. It's a bilateral agreement between the Pakistani authorities and the refugees. They have been invited to return home starting from today. About 1,800 Pakistanis, we understand, have expressed an interest in possibly returning. But they are expressing concerns about the security situation in their places of origin, about the reconstruction of their houses, which have been destroyed, and about the fact that this is the middle of winter and it's an extremely difficult time to return. So what many are saying is that they will take up the offer to go back, and they may collect their assistance package from the Pakistani government, but they may also consider coming back to Afghanistan at this very difficult time.
And speaking of Afghanistan, from what you know, what arrangements are put in place in Afghanistan itself for those Afghanis who are now returning to their country?
And this again illustrates the very difficult challenges facing Afghanistan. We're dealing with many different situations. We're talking about internal displacement, which is at record high levels. We are talking about Afghans returning from Europe or from Pakistan or from Iran. And then we're talking also about this situation of Afghanistan hosting refugees from other countries. So on the return of Afghans, in the past year, actually since July, what we saw was record high levels of return from Pakistan. So in the last 6 months of the year, we had about 600,000 Afghans who came back from Pakistan. This is both registered refugees, but also undocumented Afghans who had been living in Pakistan. And they've come back to an extremely difficult situation. As I said, we are facing a very harsh winter, and winter can pose a life or death challenge for vulnerable populations. And these are, of course, people who have been second and third generation refugees who are coming back after nearly 40 years in exile. So you can imagine the challenges for people who don't have land, who don't have shelter, who need to send their children to school, who need to get jobs and so on in order to re-establish their lives. So for a country that is still in a war-torn situation, it is a huge population to absorb. And as I mentioned, there's also this internally displaced population. 600,000 people last year were newly displaced within the country, and this adds to 1 million people who have been in a protracted displaced situation.
All right,
so
very difficult situation.
About, millions of people who are extremely vulnerable.
Sounds like quite a difficult situation. Maya Ameratunga, we thank you very much for speaking to us from Kabul, giving us your point of view. So as our guest was just mentioning, that refugee problem in Pakistan goes both ways. There's close to 2 million Afghan refugees in the country, registered and unregistered, who now face the option of either returning voluntarily or being deported from Pakistan. But what are they actually returning to? You can check out this piece on your screen right now. You'll find it, in fact, on aljazeera.com on our website.